Penitentiary， 哇，犀利喎！呢個犀利。入去啦，我哋 OK。喂，你過嚟呢度咁鬼大。呢度啲自家長隔離其實做。哇！呢啲幼仔好似動馬騮戲睇你班幼仔啊，真係未見過，未見過。呢個有個 visit centre 嘅。冇。入去啦，我哋。跟住入去嗰度啊？呢度啊？喂，呢度。都唔平㗎，10幾蚊㗎。呢個平啊？呢個正嘢嚟㗎。哇！呢個應該係嗰個。哇！嗰個應該係電椅嚟㗎啦。大鑊㗎啦！有寫㗎喎，睇先。好似都唔係好正啊！呢度有寫，咁樣睇到啦。啲咩人幾時受刑啊？呢度有寫到，好犀利喎！呢個有個 picture 更加詳細啦。個電椅點樣電法啦？咁樣可能啊，清楚啦呢個嘢啦。哇！咁樣，哇有個箱。呢個 OK 咁樣木整嘅啫喎。呢張就係 OK。隔離咧就係嗰啲電掣應該咯。大鑊㗎啦！咁樣電法。一定死啊！咁講法，件衫你着住可能呢個係啊，呢個叫做 old spray 啦。原來出邊有咁大嘢啦，應該睇入邊嗰個啊。真係，呢個比個模型仲更加靚俾你睇睇，係咪？仲正啲添呢度。遠少少啦，咁樣可能靚啲。
West Virginia Penitentiary was a maximum security prison for 129 years. It was open from 1866 until March 27, 1995. Wow. It shut down due to a lawsuit that said the prison had broken the 8th Amendment for cruel and unusual punishments. Our first stop in our tour here is non-contact visitation. Inmates would be sitting here. Visitors would come in the front door and sit outside the windows. They would talk through the grates below the windows until 1980, when the officers had found the visitors smuggling in drugs to inmates. One of the ways they would do that was the night before an execution, the warden would bring in an electrician. He would only activate one of the 3 buttons, but he did not tell anyone which of the 3 would work. The day of the execution, 3 officers would be randomly picked. They would have to push all 3 buttons at the same time, and then they wouldn't have a guilty conscience because they wouldn't know who had executed the inmate.
Okay.
If an officer refused to push the button, he was fired on the spot. If another officer would be brought in to replace him, and if the warden ever volunteered to push the button and execute the inmate, the warden would be given $25 extra on his pay that week. 7 feet, there were 3 or 4 inmates sitting in a cell, so from 1929 until 1959, the construction crew was hired. They added from the wall of the red door all the way down here to the south end, 22.5 hours an hour. maggots smell like rain as well. A lot of complaints were filed about this. Nothing was done. January 1st, 1986, in the bathroom. This became contact visitation, where inmates could have one hug and one kiss at the door with their loved ones and hold hands across the table for about an hour. Our work in here was all done by 3 separate inmates. Sean Abney, Smith. The display in the corner there was also built by the inmates. They made that across the street until 1997 when they had it brought back to the prison because a lot of people were complaining that they're not wearing clothing. You guys have any questions?
So we can say,
Okay, hold it.
Control gauge up in the room at the window there as well. Now, inmates were really better behaved than the rest of us because it was cleaner, no vermin, no sewage, and it was the only part of the prison at the time that had air conditioning. Officers were allowed to pay $1.05 to get the same tray of food as inmates, but they would eat behind this wall, so 120 inmates and 15 unarmed officers were not staring at each other.
Here in North Yard, the tallest part of the building is the administration building. The first 2 floors at the top, there's no bars in the windows because up until 1970 there was a law that said the warden and his family had to live on the property. Oh man. The 3rd floor down was the warden and deputy warden's office. Secretaries and records would have been up there. The 1st floor was open for the public and they were allowed to come in and run errands inside the maximum security prison. I'm going to take you inside the prison and show you that area as well. The white strip of paint along the base of the walls is because in 1980, uniforms for inmates were changed from red. They tied bed sheets to ropes, they could climb over the walls, they could sneak into vehicles, be driven out the wagon gate. One of the escapes that had happened was in front of the blue building. There used to be a greenhouse that stood there, and in 1992, the inmates who were working in the greenhouse had taught them 7 feet below parties and weddings. Because where is a better place to start your life sentence? So I'm going to take you guys over toward the cage here. Please walk this up.
Đi gọi tao là đi gọi.
Taken from here and county jails out to a rock quarry where inmates had to cut, quarry, bevel, and lay all of the sandstone blocks here by hand. When the north end of the prison was built, the inmates removed into the cell building off to the side. That used to be where there was a brick building because from 1942 until 1947, the prison was co-ed for those years. We had about 100 women who would be housed over there. When this was co-ed robbery, because she had went to Charleston, West Virginia, to the glass-broken ketchup bottle and used it to rob a gas station. While she was serving her time, she had a son who was about 8 years old. Her son was Charles Manson. And then
Đi come up.
Now, before 1960, this was general population where you had 3 or 4 inmates in a cell because there used to be a second bunk on top, and then there was also a mattress on the floor between the toilet and the doorway. So if the inmates were stuck sleeping on the floor, the one thing that they learned was always sleep their head near the toilet. You could stab them very easily, which would happen a lot in here. Now these cell doors are movie props. They were in here making a movie last summer. They didn't tell us what it was, but they left these. These are the real doors, and the caging was put on the front, so it makes it harder to stab each other through the bars. And because an officer would walk up to the front of the cell door, and inmates would throw fire, water, blood, urine, feces, vomit, spit, all of it at your face. Now the bottom of the cell door, the opening is called a bean hole. That is where you would slide the trays of food in for solitary inmates after 1960. But if you reach your hand through the bean hole, it could also be bitten, stabbed, or broken through there as well. Now the caging above your heads had to be put up there because when it was general population, the inmates were allowed to walk up and down through here. So they would go up to the 4th tier and throw each other off or hang each other from the railings with bed sheets and TV cables. And if you were walking down here, there would be bodies, bodily fluids, lit matches, TVs, radios, videos, bedding, all of it thrown down at your heads as well. Everything in number 10 is original. If it says Scrappy, Scrap, Guns N' Roses, ACDC, Hank, all done from an inmate who was 19 years old. His name was Danny Alexander, but he went by Scrappy. He was here with 11 years for attempted murder.
Wow.
And he started out in general population up in New Wall, but they put him in solitary because he would not stop tattooing other inmates. They let him have a marker because he was a creative young kid. And he survived being here for 11 years, and he has came back 3 times and taken our tour.
That's kind of cool. You know, I did that. That's me.
Now the cell block had rats, mice, cockroaches, maggots, sewage overflowing everywhere. Temperature-wise, with no heating and no cooling, the radiators would not be turned on in the winter because they didn't always work. In the summertime, they would turn the ceiling fans on because that would circulate the smell of body odor, cigarette smoke, and sewage. So winter in the first tier was 10 to 15 degrees, and summer on the 4th tier was 145 degrees. Now the ceiling fans also have smoke damage on them because the inmates were allowed to smoke cigarettes with matches. They've caught their bedding, themselves, each other, and everything on fire in here constantly. Number 16 will look a little different than the other cells. That is the first example of ADA compliance. Want to take a wild guess what that's for?
Wheelchair.
That is wheelchair accessible. There was 1964, there was a man named Paul Hankish. He was the mafia leader of Wheeling, Pittsburgh area. But a bomb went off in his car, so he was in a wheelchair and said he was paralyzed. He was an inmate here in New Wall in general population, but he kept telling officers, oh, I can't be put in solitary, my wheelchair won't fit. And they cut out the wall, put his wheelchair in, and he served 15 years here in prison before he was released on parole. And when he was released on parole, an officer who came back and took the tour told me they wheeled him up to the front door, said, you're free to go, take your buddy, or get your buddy to take you out of here. And he stood up out of his wheelchair, laughed at the officer, and walked away after being paralyzed from the waist down for years.
I like the little notch to get his wheelchair in there in the solitary.
Okay. Now, did some of them die while they were here from like heat-related issues?
I think there's about 40 to 45 names of they froze to death or heat stroke, heat exhaustion.
Damn. Technically, that was. That's not what they
But
said.
at the time, air conditioning didn't exist. True. Now heat did, but we would think that,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I mean, I guess they kind of. For sure, the guards weren't very happy there. So.
Now, North Hall has a 2-step locking mechanism, so you put the inmates in their cell, you would shut the door, lock it with the key, you go into the cage here. Now, this is the day room, so the officers who would be here watching over the cell block for their 8-hour shift had to stay right here. If the inmates were going to go out to the yard for their outside time, we released an inmate, they would go into that cage along the back wall. They had to be shackled and strip searched when they went out and when they came back in. And one of our ex-officers had came back here to work as a tour guide, and he had told us that there was an inmate named Bruce White who went into the cage, they were searching him, and he found a fully loaded revolver with no safety in his rectum. Another inmate who was working in the blue room had taken it from the guard, chucked it into the bullpen, and Bruce White was stuck it through his body. Now, 3 days a week, inmates were allowed to take a 10-minute shower. So they would put 4 inmates in here, and this is the gang shower. Instead of a shower head, you have a pipe that has 1, 2, 3, 4 holes where the water would come out for the shower. When the 4 inmates were locked in here for 10 minutes, an officer would be in the blue room in the corner. He would turn on and off the water and control if it was freezing cold or scalding hot. And a lot of them have came back and said, yeah, he's in here mouthing off, turning the hot water on in the summer. But then the other 3 guys would get the same treatment and they would beat you up later for that. Now the cart
沖涼啊，入嚟啊！
冇私隱啊，OK。
做咗私隱啊，可以睇下邊個嗰個勁啲咯，係嘛？啊，喂，你真係〜哦，呢個甩架床，所講嘅甩架床分兩個啦咁啊，上一下，五個，一個嗰啲咁啊地方嚇，我揾咗你班友仔喺度。就咁啦，係咁大啦 ，OK， 真係。佢呢個話咧就閂呢個門咧就，哇，都咩㗎喎，都幾咩喎？喺呢度咧就卡咗落呢度嘅，卡咁啊閂咗啦。係嘛？卡咗落嗰度。係間隔一樣噶啦嘛，我都知啦。幾多個啊？16、17、18、20、22個。哦，呢度可以通噶啦，即係21個，即係來回咧就42個咯。嗰個仲甩架添。
This way or the other way or the two side rooms. Now when the public would come in here, the two left-hand side rooms over here were the post office where you could drop off your mail to be sent out or letters and packages to inmates. The right-hand side, both doors over here, were inmates on the yard together and two officers with radios on the ground. Officers in the towers would have 308 bolt-action sniper rifles. If anything happened down here, you would have to radio up to the tower, run and stand under it, and then they would shoot down here. Now, before 1970, they used to take busloads of inmates to the local high schools and colleges to play against the students. But there was an inmate who saw a home run, and he said he was going to go get the ball. He took off into the woods, never came back. So they would bring high school and college students here to the prison after that, so the inmates had a less chance of escaping. Having a chapel, but in 1992, an inmate named Kenneth Chance filed a lawsuit against the prison for discrimination of religion because the warden would not allow him to have a dark room, a hooded cloak, a chicken, a sword, and a chalice so he could sacrifice a chicken.
個環境好啲，係嘛？一樣甩架床。
The woman look like a bigger.
A little bit bigger.
A little bit bigger.
Fun.
Wow. Yeah, I was like, oh, maybe you should have, put something up here. Now, New Wall was where your general population inmates would be after 1960 when the South End here was built. This would only have 2 inmates in a cell together, and they were allowed to paint their cells any color except for dark gray, black, or brown. because the lights would be turned off at 10 p.m. and it's completely dark in here. You can't see what they're doing. It is 4 stories high like North Hall, but there's no caging in here because they typically would trust inmates in Gen Pop to behave themselves. And if you couldn't adjust being here, or if you had done something you shouldn't have, they would send you to solitary in North Hall. The tan wall, that is the shower. It would hold 9 inmates at a time, and it does have the shower heads knobs, so you could control your own shower. But you still didn't get any privacy because the upper tiers were throwing things down and yelling down at them. These inmates could be on the yard for 12 hours. They could have jobs and classes in the blue building, the cafeteria for mealtime. They could have visitation with family and visitors. 6 a.m. the doors would open. Every hour on the hour you would be open. The doors would open for 10 minutes until the next hour. And then 10 p.m. you were locked back in your cell for the night. Now just because you had more to do with yourself in here, it wasn't really a better place to be because this still had the heat, the cold, the noise, the smells, the vermin infestation, the sewage overflowing. It was still in here. You just didn't have to sit in it all day. Now from the side that we came through there, all the way down to the back wall over here, front and back, it would hold 1,800 inmates at a time. And you can imagine the headache you're going to get from hearing this. So Newhall was known as Migraine City.
Yeah, although I think if I was in a room next to someone who kept doing that all night, I probably would show them my displeasure because you're bothering everyone else too, not just the guards.
That person's getting joked in the ear next time they go out.
Like, listen, let's get some sleep.
Now to finish your trip to prison and really say you've had the authentic feeling of being here, we do like to offer everyone the chance of a lockdown. So in this cell block, you are allowed to go into cells 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. And if you go in there, I will go right up here. I'll flip a switch. These doors will electronically slide shut. I'll keep you in there for 30 seconds. And I promise you will be released from these. So 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, if you'd like to be locked in a cell.
You sure?
Yeah, oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Nope.
You want to get locked in?
I'm good with that part.
4 stories.
So we would have you step in the cells, and then I would say lockdown.
And
And then we would say run time.
Điện動嘅，係嘛？
What we do is we always test run them in the beginning of the day, make sure they open back up.
Yeah.
And then we wait until there's like teenagers who are real mouthy, and we just flip theirs off and they don't open.
You didn't have any short guards. They had to put a key in the lock.
But because you guys have already done the tour, if you were to open overnight, you come in to the gift shop and say, hey, I've already taken the tour, I don't want to. And we turn you loose and we stay in the gift shop.
But I can't tell them I can't tell my husband the traumatic things because I want him to go. I can't tell anyone. I want them to come experience the trauma.
We're coming there right over so we can come.
Okay. All right.
Well, we'll see you guys in October. It's moving actually.
Keep sharp，入邊嗰度先。或者去咗廁所咯。可以周圍行下喎。嗰張就係電椅啊，我講俾你有冇睇到？就咁樣電死佢啦，係嘛？呢啲就係啲監犯。係啊，所以咧冇犯事啊，OK。大鑊啦！呢個就係嗰個building個模型。嗰次廢除咗咯，好似後尾唔知啊。佢哋嚟到呢度啊！邊個啊？邊個嚟啩？勾脷根啊，打腳趾啊嗰啲，好大鑊啊！鞭打你啊嗰啲，真係酷刑啊！哇，咁犀利啊！鉗指甲啊啦，哎呀〜 篤手指啊，喂，好犀利！哎呀，留言啊啦，嗰啲遺書啦，應該講寫返屋企嗰啲可能係嘛？嗰啲遺書。嗯？攞乜嘢？唔緊要啦，哇！呢啲全部係嗰啲刑具啊。邊個嚟啊？我哋係先有興趣啫嘛。乜你以為？呢啲咧，哦，呢啲警察可能執行公務嘅時候犧牲㗎啦，係嘛？呢啲警棍啊啦，警棍，呢啲槍嚟嘅，配呢啲槍可能係嘛？配呢啲槍啊，你咪話都唔清楚添，咁樣配啲槍啊啦，咁犀利，玻璃哦反光添。呢啲又係嗰啲刑具，係喎，啲刑具喺度，哎呀，大鑊啦！啲刑具啊，嚟嚟去嗰啲，可能犯咗罪，判死刑嗰啲人喺度，呢啲人。判咗死刑嗰啲應該係嘛？我哋睇完呢度去邊啊？去食嘢咯。食嘢就跟住翻學校。係啊。咁咪一日啦。Henry Power 係嘛？呢條友仔話呢個 BB 都殺埋。
呢個 BB 佢殺咗就抌落河啦。
唔知啊。42個人啊！呢條友啊 ，witness 睇住佢啊，點樣吊死佢？42個人睇住佢殺死佢，點解嗰啲人睇住佢行刑咁解啊？哦，睇住佢行刑。係啊。佢係打毒針啊，定係吊頸㗎？呢條友咯，你咪自己咩咯，自己睇咯。呢張因為個死亡證嚟㗎咯，吊死咗之後發翻張證書俾佢。哦。West Virginia， 哦，13年嗰陣時嘅，用呢啲毒死佢，係嘛？嗰條繩都好粗啊，係嘛？我度下呢條繩喺度，係嘛？啱啱稱咗落嚟啊，可能呢條友仔就係呢個哦，點樣？度法啦，呢個可能嗰個獄警嗰個獄長啊，介紹你點樣咁樣啊，哦，百幾廿歲喺度，呢條友啦，喺個 gate 嗰度。不過你做乜嘢啊？死上嚟好快嘅啫，死咁多個咩啦？哇 ！My God！真係個個。吊頸㗎。好後生啫喎，嗰啲有啲。佢係落吊頸嗰個人啊，絞刑叫做，係嘛？哇，都好多下你咪。佢殺咗9個人啊！唔係5個人。喂，呢本書介紹點樣度法。哇！好犀利呢度，呢啲啊仲大鑊啲添。呢啲啊攞嚟做咩嘅咧？哦，個手術刀嚟嘅應該。呢條友仔，德塔嚟嘅喎。有啲打毒針啊嘛。哦，呢個德塔都俾人哋。打毒針啊嘛。德塔。 呢啲可能唔準死刑咁嘅意思，抗議咯係嘛？咁啊。嗯？
呢個係乜嘢嚟啊？
係嘛？
唔係啩？有毒氣添。
Early machine 整呢個新型嘅應該係咁樣電啩，電佢嘅應該係嘛？咁啊啲電死佢啦。
坐電椅。
啲 video 嚟㗎，呢個咧就唔同啦。Columbia Picture Person， 我睇呢個，呢個就係嗰個電影喺呢度，取景嘅。唔係呢個係取景啊，喺度影，喺度拍。
有一個 video。
打開佢先，睇下啲咩，哇！真係得喎，咁鬼勁嘅。介紹下啦，呢個 brochure， 呢個地址啊，需要嘅話，呢個就係時間表，OK，very good。睇完㗎啦，人哋。係嘛？咁犀利？唔係啊，你探監喺呢度啊，
我知你俾佢嗰啲親人
探監嗰個位啊啦，你睇。下邊啊空溜溜嘅，有個欄嘅，上邊係玻璃見到面係嘛？我坐喺呢度咁樣係嘛？係嘛？咁樣咯，即係咁樣咯，係嘛？就咁樣咯 ，OK。下邊咧，上邊見到面，下邊就聽到聲音。入邊咧就咁樣，嗰條友就喺入邊啦。佢入邊咧又有個凳坐喺嗰度，係嘛？
你喺嗰邊影過咪睇到咯。
一樣咯，係咁咯，係嘛？電視都做啦，係嘛？呢度咪一樣，叫喎 protected， 呢啲介紹咁點樣嘅？哇！啲警犬啊，應該。呢個就係佢本身呢個 building 嘅介紹。哇！越獄啊？點樣越獄法啊？掘窿啊，掘隧道咁樣係嘛？呢條友 escape capture 哇！好後生喎，呢條友仔，越咗獄俾人哋捉翻嚟應該咯。呢條友仔 I'm happy to be alive， 仲在生啊呢條友。哇！走咗去啊呢3條友。越獄㗎啦，整隧道。我真係燒拼 taking， 我真係呢條仔。點樣去法啊？去隧道嗰度走啊！20日啦，走咗都捉到俾人，大鑊！全部係嗰啲新聞嚟嘅，睇下捉嗰啲友仔點樣捉法咁解。前翻啲罪犯嗰啲資料嘅情況啦，呢個啦睇晒啦。OK，呢啲可能係睇 哦，呢啲探監記錄可能幾時邊一個咁樣係嘛？有啲記錄啊，呢個 Penitentiary，等等。3點啦嘛，OK，let's go。